I disagree because now we're getting into this doctrine of preemptive war, and that's not what I signed up for when I supported Trump.
Well, okay, but they had nuclear weapons. They were ready to develop it like in a month or so. Don't you think we should have intervened?
Well, that's where if you know that if there is this threat, then go through the proper channels and get a declaration of war, or get an authorization for military use through the Congress.
That's what the Democrats are saying, and that's what Bernie Sanders was saying too. But I don't
Well,
see.
it's also what
I don't
Thomas
see.
Massey was saying.
That's what Massey
but
was saying as well. But
Yeah.
you don't have time for Congress. They're half the time they're on vacation.
Joe,
Was
that's
not
Well, shockingly, my congressman is a Democrat. It's Greg Landsman, and he supports Trump. I was shocked when I saw that this morning, but he's all on board. He thinks we did the right thing.
Yeah, but they're going to have a nuclear bomb in like a month. What?
Joe, they've been saying that for my entire adult life.
Well, yeah, I
And
know
we do have a
it
defense
took
budget. I mean,
them a long time to develop it, but it looks
So
like
Shelby, on that last part, you and I agree. The timing is dubious because you're right. We've been hearing it for a long time. They're right on the verge of developing this nuclear weapon. That part is dubious. However, I disagree with you fundamentally that the whole notion, I do not buy into this concept of going through Congress for the simple reason that it's codified and it is specifically enumerated and spelled out that Trump, as commander-in-chief of our military, is authorized for strike force. He's authorized, and that's his job. The job of Congress is misunderstood. The job of Congress is not to say yes or no to war. The job of Congress holds the purse strings. They must authorize the expense of an ongoing war. But from a military standpoint, there's a simple expression that, for me, just clearly articulates this or any other military action, setting aside just for a brief moment whether or not we agree with the action that was taken. And that comment is very specifically, Democrats were not briefed, neither were establishment rhinos. There were no leaks. Now you know. That came from Cat Turd, who's really funny, but smart. Smart. Cat Turd is smart. If Trump had gone and made this, even if he tried to get a room full of 6 people, the chances are roughly 100% that nothing would work. And when we need to strike, when there is a need, and again, for just a brief moment, I'm setting aside the differences in opinion of whether or not we actually had to, for this instance, at a fundamental level, as a precursor to any military strike. And I said earlier, in the year leading up to Obama leaving office, he had over 26,000 missile strikes in 7 different countries, none of which were approved by Congress. So there is clearly a precedent, and getting back to the whole Thomas Massey jumping in with all the Democrats.
This is my point, though, is that it's not that I think that Obama was right or that it was wrong. I don't want President Trump acting like Obama. So that's
I'm not bringing it up to say he's acting like Obama. I'm bringing it up to say, if you have a job, if you go and work for a company, you have a job description. Your job is X. You're the CFO or the controller or the accountant or whatever. You have a job, and in your job description, number 1 on the list is your number one most important thing for our president is commander-in-chief. He is the commander of the military. That doesn't mean, hey, I'm going to go into another office for somebody else who is supposed to work in parallel with me and ask permission to do my job. That is fundamentally, I believe, wrong. There are some people
I would say read Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution.
Article 1, Section of the that pertains to the declaration of war, which isn't what happened.
We haven't. Yeah, we haven't.
But we attacked another sovereign country.
But there isn't a war here. Trump says that there's peace now. There's peace. We just had to blow up their facilities. No war. We're not doing anything else. That was
right,
it.
Which is Orwellian doublespeak. So we're going to cause war to prevent war.
You have to show some military might. You have
it's real easy to call for peace after you've just bombed somebody. But we disagree on this fundamentally. I just think that I'm 57 years old, and I've lived through one conflict after another, and we really need to start focusing on the problems that we have at home. I'm not saying that we should not defend ourselves, but with the largest military budget in the world, I'm sure that we have some kind of defensive capabilities from whatever Iran would throw at us.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just tired.
but
I'm tired of
Iran,
endless war.
but Shelby, Iran can drop a nuke on Israel pretty easily. They're right so
Okay,
close.
see, but now we're changing the story that it's protecting Israel. It's not protecting the United States.
I think it's both because as Plechnik pointed out, as Commissioner Plechnik pointed out, if we can continue to track back, let's say, for instance, and we're in Ohio, and I think there's a great example in the Italian mob that flourished in Chicago. I'm just going to use an analogy. Hopefully this resonates. But we knew for a long time that Elliot Ness and people were going in and trying to break up the mob. That mob was spreading and sprawling, and the violence was coming out of Chicago. We eventually were pushed to the point where we had to send in federal efforts to try to curb the mob's growth and expansion. It was a bloodbath in Chicago. I think in similar fashion, we have an environment where we had a militarized rogue agent in the Middle East who was threatening Western interests. It was threatening U.S. interests all over the world. It was promoting and funding terrorism over and over and over again, and we kept not responding. We kept, plus, yes, all right, so there's another element here that I think resonates with some people. I have a feeling that there's going to be a dividing fracture right here, but there's great evidence that there's mass subjugation of the Iranian people that's taken place for 39 years. There are people who have humanitarian interests as well. I know those are two different points, but it just occurred to me to bring that up. I mentioned it earlier. There are some videos that have been released from people who have escaped Iran and said it is worse than you can imagine. It's an oppressive regime. Our country has been taken over. Getting back to my primary point, at what point do we have to acknowledge that a lot of our constant pain and suffering and the attacks against our military and our interests is emanating out of Iran?
Yeah, I mean, Iran, they're crazy, okay? They are a crazy country. That supreme leader, he wants that nuke so he can start nuking people. You drop a nuke somewhere, you could wipe out 1 million people, okay? So I'm 100% behind what Trump did. But anyhow, that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, we'll just see where this mission creep leads, because I mean, again, we're falling for the similar playbook as what got us into Iraq, and we had to go back there twice, and we're in Afghanistan for 20 years. I mean, the first this was that we were just going to take out their nuclear processing capabilities, and now even while we've been on this call, President Trump's put out a tweet indicating now regime change. So now here we're going to have this. We're going to have this mission creep, and we're going to see what happens.
If he does,
if he does a regime change, I'm wrong.
He does a regime change. That's a whole different ballgame at all. Just blowing up a few of these nuke sites where they're making the nuke bombs, I don't have a problem with. But a regime change, I think he's probably going to have to go through. Congress on that. Go ahead.
Joe, I think we have to be very clear here. You either fight a war on your own turf, on your own shores, or you fight it on someone else's. And the reality is the United States has not been at peace since World War II. We've not been perfectly safe since World War II. There have been international threats that have wanted to destroy this country from the Cold War on. And the way we've responded, and I think positively, for the American people's safety and sake, is to make sure that the fighting and the war is not from sea to shining sea in the 50 states. We've made sure that the war is elsewhere by keeping the front in other countries. So we're taking the fight to them rather than let them get to us. Now, there have been incidents like September 11th.
Speaking just like George Bush.
It's not just like George Bush, not at all. At the end of the day, though, would you rather have a ground war in the United States, or would you rather blow up someone's nuclear bomb offshore? I mean, that's fundamentally the choice that we have.